Hello, Pirate Dave here. It is another new comic book day. It is April 8th, 2026. Let's get right into it with my comic book haul. Up first, we have Cyborg Girl number 12. That's actually Supergirl number 12. But you can see right on the cover, it looks like we're getting a little bit of maybe an homage to Cyborg Superman, huh? This story has been quite interesting. I was talking with somebody at the comic shop, and they were. I was telling them a little bit about this series. They seem to be longing for a return to the Silver Age, and so I told them, like, well, you might enjoy the Supergirl series because it is kind of a callback, a love letter to that age. But then they also mentioned that the Supergirl story that they didn't like was where she lost her powers previously, and I was like, oh, okay, well, you might not you might not like the latest Supergirl issues because that actually happened in the last issue. But it looks like she's getting some of her powers back in this one. Check out the insides. And I'm not sure who's still the okay. Bon Villain is the artist on this. I'm not familiar with their work. It doesn't seem to be a far cry from was it the artist that started on the series? Because yeah, some of the physiology of the characters looks really familiar. I love that page in particular. It's very Aeon Flux. If you saw the old Liquid TV spots on MTV back in the day, Peter Chung. Very much looking forward to that issue. Up next, we have a pair of books. First is G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, number 327. So this is the original line from Larry Hama, not the current Energon universe, the new G.I. Joe. It is G.I. Joe, subtitled A Real American Hero. And I don't know if they're getting back to a story arc finally or not. The last few issues seem to be somewhat isolated. And we can see that Mooneyham is no longer on the... Is that a friggin' lightsaber? We can see that Mooneyham is no longer on the book. Well, I mean, I say no longer, but oh, ooh la la. But he comes and goes, right? So looks like we're going to see Jinx. We're going to see a little bit of CoverGirl. And Law and Order? Law and Order? I'm not, no. That is not a team. That's, okay, never mind. I'm not exactly sure who these are in the background. My apologies. I'm a fake G.I. Joe fan. Speaking of, we also have G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, Silent Missions, Crimson Guard. Silent Missions. There's 3 S's for that. The word silent there. This is interesting because Crimson Guard is not a character. Crimson Guard is usually a force, right? It's a unit of Cobra troopers. So this is going to be writer artist Gabriel Hardman. Matt Hollingsworth is the colorist there. We can see all these are Cobra missions, of course. If you're interested in, oh, well, you get some Joes right in the offset there. If you're interested in Joe Silent Missions, there was a series, not strictly a series last year because the books were individually titled, but you should be able to find them as a series featuring the Joes specifically. This issue was accompanied by the previous week, Silent Mission for Baroness, which was very, very awesome. So I'm looking forward to this one. I don't think it's going to be able to compare to Baroness for a couple of reasons. I'll let you figure out what those are. But up next we have Something Beyond the Petrichor. And as I have for the last 3 issues, I have to illustrate that this is probably not a new issue to some of you out there. Apparently it came out like 6 months ago, but it just hit my local comic shop. So it's new to me. This should be the last issue of the series. Very intrigued to find out how this wraps up. And in fact, the way the previous issues read, I'd be surprised if this really satisfyingly wraps up everything that's been going on. And the quick rundown of this series is that the world has been affected by a monster acid rain, which has burned away everything except plastic. So this young lady, along with, as you can see, the silhouette of a creature here, are the only people that she's aware is alive. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly a sort of psychological study of what a person may do to cope in that situation without being too intense, right? Because she is, while she's an adult girl by definition, I think she sort of reverts back into a childlike manner. She even has like an imaginary friend that she mainly talks to. So that is an interesting one. And up next, we have another bit of a pair. First is Flash Gordon Zero. So there's been a Flash Gordon series Mad Cave has been putting out that has finished the story arc that it's had, and so they decided to reboot that, but not reboot that, because I think that while this is going to be number 0, the next Flash Gordon that's been putting out by this creative team, which is Dan Abnett and Manuel Garcia, is going to continue the numbering from the current series, if that's not too confusing to you. And I think that this story, it is jumping back to Earth, so it's not really happening on Mongo or the remnants of Mongo as the story has been taking place. I love that page, right? I just love when they sort of put well recognizable real world sort of publications in the books, and you can see this sort of wrap up on what's going on here. A lot of people are excited for Dan Abnett. I've got to say, I'm not familiar with the name. Maybe that's embarrassing. Maybe I should re-educate myself, and I'll look into him. But I picked up his book, so I think that's fair. And as I said, sort of pairs with the previous one. These are disconnected, but this is Defenders of the Earth, Dark Destiny. Defenders, of course, is the King Features super team of Flash Gordon, the Phantom, Mandrake the Magician, and Lothar. This is Defenders of the Earth, Dark Destiny, number 4. I've been very critical of this series, specifically of the art that's been going on from Alex Sanchez. I think Alex Sanchez is a talented artist. I just don't think that that talent really extends to superhero premise very much. I think that his physiology does a really great job drawing attractive, optimal, realistic people, if that makes sense, but not so much superheroes that fill out superhero costumes, because Flash Gordon and the Phantom have been looking a little underwhelming in this series. But the last issue was compelling enough to get me to want to finish it out with number 4. I'm excited, and you can see the implications right there on the cover. Ming and Dale. What's going on here? How did we get here? Why is Ming even back in Defenders of the Earth? He died in the previous series. It's a whole mess of intrigue that I am interested enough to jump into. Lastly, for the floppies this week is going to be Muppets Noir Deluxe Mystery Bag Blind Bag Deluxe Mystery Variant Blind Bag. This retails for $15.99. So the way that Dynamite usually does these covers is they're either an exclusive pool and or they include incentive covers, and that's what perhaps justifies the $15.99 price tag in their reasoning. It's up to you whether or not that's worth it, because you could just go buy Muppets Noir for, $4.99, or I'm not sure if it's that first issue is $5.99 or $4.99, but certainly less than $15.99. However, these blind bags are fun sometimes to see what you're going to get, so I decided since I don't have Muppets Noir number 1 yet, I might as well pick up the blind bag and unbag it right here on stream. Oh, and it looks like there's two issues that you get in there. Oh, that's fun. So I'm not exactly sure who the artists would be for this, but it looks like black and white issues, black and white cut variants for Muppet Noir number 1. This is looks like a black and white of the cover A. And this does not look like a black and white of cover A. It doesn't look like they have a credit for the variant artists on the inside cover. Maybe on the back cover? No, Darkwing Duck adverts. But while we're here, let's take a look on the inside anyway. I am a Muppets fan, mostly the Muppets movies, Muppets Treasure Island, Muppets Christmas Carol, The Muppets, all that sort of stuff. I remember the show a few times when I was a kid. I specifically remember when Prince came on, when he was the artist formerly known as. Um, so I'm looking forward to diving into the comics, seeing what it's all about. So I didn't know that these were two covers that you get. So if you're interested in that sort of value, $15.99 for these two covers. It looks like they will be exclusive to the blind bag. I'm not a huge black and white cover guy. It's fine. It's just not something that I'm, all that excited about or that I collect exclusively. So if you are not into black and white covers either, that might be something that you'll want to consider. Consider not pursuing. Sorry about that big pause. I was just clearing everything off of the work area here. And last up, this was a new release this week, finally, was Corto Maltese Fable of Venice and Other Adventures. Now, the cool thing about this was that it was 1999. And the thing that you may know if you're familiar with Corto Maltese English translations, collections at all, is that 1999 is a ridiculous steal for English translations. Every single English translation of this book thus far, whether it was NBM or it was, I can't remember who did the most recent beautiful, beautiful collections. All of them are, it was IDW, I think. All of them are very expensive. The price goes way up. We're talking, for Fable of Venice specifically, if you want a translation of it, $60 minimum, and that may be if you're lucky. I've not read Fable of Venice, so I'm looking very much towards it. Fable of Venice is the specifically graphic novel size story in here. The rest of these are more issue sized, as you can see, 59 to 81. That's, about 20 pages. 81 to 203, 20 pages. 125, 20 pages. Oh, that's a that's a biography. These three stories I have read. They're collected in the Under the Sign of the Capricorn from the IDW collection, or Brazilian Eagle from the NBN. I'm a big fan of Corto Maltese, obviously, why I would be so excited about this. Written and illustrated by Hugo Pratt is a name that you may have heard in the comic space, in the sequential art space. Really, the appeal of Corto Maltese is that he's very much in that vein of Indiana Jones, where he's this globe-trotting adventurer. He has this sort of devil-may-care attitude when it comes to authority. Corto's not hunting down treasure or anything like that, to put things in a museum like Indiana Jones. But he is sailing the high seas. This is from Tristram Bantam, that story. But he is sailing the high seas, meeting very interesting characters, and more importantly, going to very exotic locales. And I say exotic, but maybe that's not the most fair thing to describe this as, because the way that Hugo Pratt illustrated these locations was they're very real. Like, obviously, if you're from anywhere in America, this looks different, right? But it looks like a real place. He doesn't illustrate these places with just the fantastic landmarks that you might be you might be familiar with when people do present illustrations or pictures of them. The way that I believe it was Neil Gaiman, even the way that he was described as illustrating these backgrounds and these settings was as a man who had lived there. And that's true of most of these. Hugo Pratt had a life, even from a child, of being a military brat, of traveling the world and living in Ethiopia. Even he's an Italian, but he lived briefly in Ethiopia. He lived in Argentina, etc. Corto Maltese is also a name that you may have heard referenced from DC, the island nation of Corto Maltese. It's kind of a silly name to use as that reference for a nation. unless you're using it for the nation of Malta, right? Because Maltese, the name means Corto from Malta, right? As Corto is from Malta. I don't think I've read a story where he actually goes back to Malta yet, but maybe in this one, maybe it's part of the Fable of Venice since he's in the region, right? Anyway, that's enough of my ranting about Corto Maltese. Hopefully you had a great week ahead of you. I was Pirate Dave, and I will see you next week. Bye.